The temperature gauge hit the red zone about 40 miles past Rawlins. I noticed it climb for maybe 10 minutes before that, but I kept telling myself it was fine. Probably fine. The Corolla had gotten me through 3 states already, and I figured it could handle one more stretch of Wyoming interstate before I stopped for the night. I was wrong about that. When steam started curling out from under the hood, I eased onto the shoulder and watched my phone signal drop from 2 bars to 1. Then it just sat there. 1 bar. I tried pulling up a map anyway, but the loading wheel spun and gave me nothing. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours the night before, maybe 5 the night before that. The whole month had been applications and rejections, and sitting in my apartment refreshing my email like that would change anything. When the layoffs hit, they gutted the whole department. Not just me, all of us. But somehow that didn't make the job search any easier. So I'd packed what fit in the trunk and pointed the car east. Figured I'd crash with my brother in Pennsylvania for a while. Regroup, whatever that meant. The highway stretched flat and empty in both directions. Late afternoon light, no other cars. I popped the hood and let the engine cool while I checked my phone again. Still 1 bar. I opened the browser and typed "mechanic near me" and waited. It took maybe 2 minutes to load. When it finally did, I got a single result. Sinclair Station, fuel and mechanical services, Medicine Bow, Wyoming. 6 miles ahead. I'd heard of Medicine Bow. Couldn't remember why. Maybe from a podcast or something. Didn't matter. I screenshotted the directions in case the signal dropped completely, then sat in the car for another 20 minutes until the steam stopped and the gauge needle fell back to halfway. The Corolla started fine. I kept it under 50 and watched the temperature the whole way. The Sinclair sign appeared first. Big green dinosaur logo on a tall pole, the kind you can see from a mile off. Then the exit. Then a 2-lane road that curved through dry grass and scattered fence posts before the buildings started. Medicine Bow didn't announce itself. No welcome sign. No population number. Just a cluster of structures that materialized on both sides of the road like they'd been there long enough to forget why. I slowed to 25. The streets were paved but old, cracked in places. A post office, a diner with a gravel lot. A couple of houses set back from the road with metal roofs and bare yards. Everything looked functional, maintained enough. But the whole place felt still in a way that bugged me a little. No people. Not on the sidewalks, not in the parked trucks, not a soul around. I passed a building that might have been a town hall, then a cafe with a wooden sign that just said, "Open." The lights were on inside, but I didn't see anyone through the windows. The Sinclair station sat at the far end of town. Single story, white walls, 2 pumps out front and a garage bay on the side with the door rolled halfway up. I pulled into the lot and parked near the entrance. When I killed the engine, the silence felt heavy. No wind, no birds, just the tick of the cooling motor and my own breathing. I sat there for a second. Then I got out. The air smelled like diesel and dust. I walked to the front door and it opened with the electronic chime that sounded too loud. Inside was a counter, a few shelves with snacks and oil bottles, a coffee station in the corner with a half-full pot that looked hours old. A guy stood behind the register, tall, maybe 6 feet, sandy hair under a Sinclair cap, coveralls stained dark around the pockets and cuffs. He looked up when I came in but didn't say anything right away. "Hey," I said. "My car overheated on the interstate. I need someone to look at it." He nodded once. "Radiator?" "Probably. You let it cool before driving it here?" "Yeah." "Good." He pulled a rag from his pocket and wiped his hands. Didn't get them any cleaner. "I'm Frederick. I'm the only one in town who still works on radiators." "Hudson," I said. He didn't offer to shake hands, just folded the rag and set it on the counter. "I can look at it tomorrow morning. 7:30. "That works. Is there a motel around here, or—" "Vicky's got a place, back house apartment. She rents it on Airbnb." I pulled out my phone. Still 1 bar, but it held. I opened the app and searched Medicine Bow, and yeah, there it was. One listing. A small studio behind a main house. $72 a night. The photos looked clean, plain. A bed, a table, a bathroom. That was it. I booked 2 nights. Figured that'd give Frederick time to fix whatever was wrong and me time to get back on the road. Got it, I said. Frederick nodded. Vicky's place is 3 streets over. Take a left out of the lot, second right. Blue house with a gravel drive. Thanks. I started to turn toward the door, but he didn't move. Just stood there looking at me. Not hostile, not friendly. Something in between. You passing through? He asked. Yeah, headed east. Figured. He reached under the counter and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Slid it across to me like a receipt. Read this tonight. I picked it up. Plain white printer paper. Folded in half. What is it? Rules, he said. Towns got specific ones. Newcomers create problems when they ignore local customs. I unfolded it. 5 lines. Printed in a plain font, numbered 1 through 5. 1. Do not open your door after dark unless you called for help. 2. Do not answer knocking unless you know who it is. 3. If you hear your name outside, do not respond. 4. Keep your curtains closed at night. 5. If you break a rule, call town hall immediately. I read them twice. Then I looked up at Frederick. Is this a joke? No. Okay. I waited for him to smile or clarify or something. He didn't. Just stood there. What happens if I don't follow them? You'll find out. That's not really an answer. It's the one I've got. I folded the paper again. It felt absurd, like some kind of small-town hazing thing. But Frederick's face stayed flat and serious, and I didn't have the energy to push it. All right, I said. Thanks. 7:30 tomorrow, he said. Got it. I shoved the paper into my pocket and left. Vicky's house was right where Frederick said it'd be. Blue siding, gravel driveway, a main house in front, and a smaller structure behind it connected by a covered walkway. I parked next to an older Ford pickup and grabbed my duffel from the trunk. The back house door had a keypad lock. Vicky had sent the code in the Airbnb message. I punched it in, and the door clicked open. Inside was exactly what the photos promised. A single room with a bed against one wall, a small table and 2 chairs, a kitchenette with a hot plate, and a mini fridge. A door in the back led to a bathroom. Everything was clean, neutral, impersonal. I dropped my bag on the bed and sat down. My phone buzzed. A message from Vicky. Welcome. Let me know if you need anything. Checkout is 11. I typed back a thanks and tossed the phone on the table. Then I just sat there for a minute. The room was quiet. No traffic sounds, no voices, just the hum of the fridge. I pulled the folded paper out of my pocket and read the rules again. They still didn't make sense. I mean, some of them were just basic stuff. Don't open your door for strangers. Fine. But if you hear your name outside, do not respond. That was weird. Specific, in a way that felt too deliberate. I set the paper on the table and rubbed my eyes. I was too tired to think about it. Probably just some local tradition. Maybe the town had a problem with solicitors or something, and this was their way of keeping people safe. Weird, but not impossible. I'd read it. I'd thanked Frederick. That was enough. I pulled out my laptop and checked my email. 3 new messages. 2 were automated rejections from applications I'd sent a week ago. The 3rd was spam. I closed the laptop. Tomorrow Frederick would fix the radiator. Then I'd drive east and leave Medicine Bow behind and forget the whole thing. That was the plan. I didn't take the rules seriously. That was my first mistake. I made ramen around 8 that night. The kitchenette had a hot plate with 2 settings, low and high, and a dented pot in the cabinet below the sink. I filled the pot with tap water and set it on high. The coil turned orange after a minute or so. While the water heated, I pulled out my phone and searched radiator leak fix. The signal was still 1 bar, barely holding on, but after a few seconds, a video loaded. Some guy in a garage with decent lighting and a Chevy on a lift. He wore gloves and explained the difference between a cracked radiator and a blown hose. I leaned against the counter and watched. The water started boiling. I dumped the ramen block in and broke it up with a fork. The guy in the video said you could use stop leak products as a temporary patch, but they'd gum up the system eventually. Better to replace the part. I already knew that, probably. I just wanted to hear someone say the radiator wasn't completely dead. I turned the hot plate off and let the noodles sit for a minute. The apartment smelled like sodium and whatever flavoring powder they put in the cheap stuff. Chicken, I think. I'd grabbed a 12-pack of them from a grocery store outside Laramie because they were on sale and didn't need refrigeration. I ate standing up, scrolling through my phone. Email had nothing new. My brother hadn't texted back yet. I'd sent him a message earlier saying the car broke down and I'd be a day or two late. He'd see it eventually. The folded paper with the rules sat on the table where I'd left it. I glanced at it a couple times while I finished the ramen. It still felt ridiculous. Local superstition, maybe. Small towns had weird things sometimes. I remembered a place in Arizona where everyone painted their porch ceilings blue to keep wasps away. Didn't actually work, but people did it anyway. I figured this was the same deal. Some old tradition that stuck around because nobody questioned it. Frederick probably handed that paper to every outsider who came through just to see if they'd take it seriously. I rinsed the pot in the sink and left it on the counter to dry. The video had moved on to autoplay, some other car repair thing I wasn't paying attention to. I locked my phone and set it down. It was a little past 9. Still early, but I was tired. I thought about going to bed, then remembered I hadn't showered since leaving Utah. I grabbed a towel from the shelf near the bathroom and turned the water on. It took a while to get warm. The shower was fine. Small, but the pressure was decent and the drain didn't back up. I stayed under longer than I needed to, just letting the hot water work on my shoulders. I'd been driving for 2 days straight before the car gave out, and my back felt like it. When I got out, the mirror was fogged over. I wiped a section clear with my hand and looked at myself. Same face, tired eyes, hair sticking up weird in the back. I needed a haircut, but that wasn't happening anytime soon. I pulled on a t-shirt and sweatpants and walked back into the main room. My phone said 9:12. That's when it clicked. The first rule. The one about locking doors. Do not open your door after dark unless you called for help. I looked at the back door. The deadbolt was already thrown. I'd locked it when I came in, out of habit, but the rule didn't say lock it after dark. It said, don't open it. And the cutoff was 9:10. I stood there for a second, trying to remember if the rule actually specified a time, or if I was filling that in myself. I walked over to the table and unfolded the paper. Do not open your door after dark unless you called for help. No time. Just after dark. I checked my phone again. Sunset in Wyoming this time of year was around 7:30, maybe 8. So I'd already been past the cutoff for over an hour. I just hadn't thought about it. Which probably didn't matter because the rules were nonsense anyway. But my brain wouldn't let it go. I walked to the back door and checked the deadbolt again. Locked. Obviously locked. I'd checked it twice already. The window above the kitchenette sink didn't have curtains. Rule 4 said to keep them closed at night, but there was nothing to close. Just glass and a sill. I filled a mug with tap water from the sink. It was chipped along the rim, white ceramic with a faded logo I couldn't make out. I set it on the sill, right in the center of the window. I don't know why I did that. It felt like the kind of thing you were supposed to do. Old superstition stuff. Leave water out. Maybe it helps. Maybe it doesn't. Probably it just sits there and gets dusty. I stepped back and looked at the mug for a second, then felt stupid and went to sit on the bed. My laptop was still in my bag. I thought about pulling it out, checking if the Airbnb had Wi-Fi, but I didn't feel like it. Instead, I lay back and stared at the ceiling. It was textured, that popcorn kind they don't do anymore because of asbestos or something. The room was quiet. No traffic sounds, no neighbors, nothing. Just the hum of the mini fridge in the corner. I closed my eyes. At 10:37, someone knocked on the back door. 3 knocks. Slow. Spaced evenly, maybe 2 seconds apart. They weren't loud, but they weren't soft either. Deliberate. Close to the frame, like whoever it was had their knuckles right up against the wood. I sat up fast. Heart doing that thing where it kicks into second gear before your brain catches up. The knock stopped. I stayed on the bed, listening. My phone was on the table. The room was dark except for the glow from the window above the sink, streetlight or moon or something outside. Nobody knocked at 10:30 at night unless something was wrong. I stood up and walked toward the door. My hand was halfway to the knob when I stopped. The second rule, do not answer knocking unless you know who it is. I pulled my hand back. "Hello?" I said. Not loud, just enough to carry through the door. No answer. I waited. My pulse was still up and I could feel it in my throat. This was stupid. It was probably Vicky. Maybe she needed something. Or Frederick. Or someone else from town with an actual reason to be here. But nobody answered. I stepped closer to the door, trying to look through the peephole. It was one of those cheap brass ones, the kind that distorts everything. I could see the covered walkway outside, dim and empty. No shapes, no movement. I stepped back. The knocking came again. 3 more. Same rhythm, same spacing, but not in the same spot. Higher up, maybe, or further to the left. I couldn't tell exactly, but it was different. Like whoever was out there had moved along the doorframe and tried again. I didn't move toward the door this time. My phone was still on the table. I grabbed it and unlocked the screen. 1 bar. I opened the browser and typed Medicine Bowtown Hall phone number. The page took forever to load. The little spinning wheel just sat there, mocking me. Finally, a result came up. Town hall listing, address, hours, and a phone number. I dialed it. It rang 4 times, then clicked over to a recording. A woman's voice, flat and professional. "You've reached the Medicine Bowtown Hall. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. If this is an emergency, please contact County Dispatch at..." I didn't write down the other number. I just stood there, holding the phone to my ear, listening to the recording loop back to the start. While it played, the knocking came again. Not 3 this time, just 2. Slow, lower on the door, near the bottom hinge maybe. Whoever was out there had moved again. I ended the call and set the phone down on the table. My hands were shaking a little. Not a lot, just enough to notice. I pulled the folded paper toward me and read through the rules again. Do not open your door after dark unless you called for help. I hadn't opened it. Do not answer knocking unless you know who it is. I didn't know who it was, so I hadn't answered. Technically, I'd said hello, but I didn't open the door. That had to count. The third rule was about hearing your name outside. Nobody had said my name. I looked at the door. Still closed. Deadbolt still thrown. I walked to the window above the sink and looked out. The mug of water sat where I'd left it. Outside, I could see part of the gravel driveway and the side of Vicky's main house. A porch light was on over there, yellow and dim. No movement, no people. I stepped back from the window and sat down at the table. The knocking didn't come again. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. My brain kept trying to come up with explanations. Someone got the wrong address. Someone was messing with me. Kids, maybe, though I hadn't seen any kids in town. Frederick, testing me to see if I'd follow the rules. None of it felt right. I sat there in the dark, listening to the hum of the fridge and the sound of my own breathing. And I realized the rules probably weren't a joke. Something was out there. I didn't know what. But it had knocked on my door 3 separate times, moving each time. And it hadn't said a word. I stayed inside, didn't open the door, didn't look through the peephole again, and I started thinking maybe Frederick had a reason for handing me that paper. I woke up to sunlight coming through the window above the sink. 6:42, according to my phone. The mug of water was still there on the sill. I'd half expected it to be gone or knocked over or something, but it just sat there catching light. The door was still locked. No scratches on it that I could see. No marks. I got dressed and checked the peephole one more time before unlocking the deadbolt. The walkway outside looked completely ordinary. Gray concrete, a little dusty. The main house sitting there with its blue siding and quiet windows. My Corolla parked next to Vicky's truck. That bothered me more than it should have. Morning made Medicine Bow look normal again, which unsettled me more than it reassured me. Like the whole thing reset when the sun came up. I kept thinking about the knocking. 3 knocks, then 3 more from a different spot, then 2 down low near the hinge. Something that moved. Something that never said a word. But now everything looked fine. I grabbed my phone and wallet and locked the door behind me. The air smelled clean, cold but not freezing. It was probably mid-40s, decent for late October. I walked back toward the main street, past the post office and the houses with their metal roofs. A pickup truck rolled by, going maybe 20 miles per hour. The driver didn't wave or look over, just kept going. I spotted the cafe I'd seen yesterday. The Virginian Hotel, according to the sign painted above the door. Not really a hotel anymore, I figured. Just the cafe part still operating. The wooden open sign hung in the window, and I could see a few people inside through the glass. I went in. The place was small, maybe 10 tables, half of them occupied. A counter along the back with stools. Everything looked old but clean. Wood paneling on the walls, framed photos of the town from decades ago, a ceiling fan turning slow overhead. It smelled like coffee and bacon grease. A woman about my age came over with a menu. Dark auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail, freckles across her nose, wearing a diner uniform with a white apron. She smiled the kind of smile you give to travelers passing through. "Morning," she said. "Just you?" "Yeah." She gestured to a 2-top by the window. I sat. She set the menu down and pulled out a notepad. "Coffee? Please." She walked off and came back 30 seconds later with a white ceramic mug and a pot. Poured it without asking if I wanted room for cream. I didn't care. I wrapped both hands around the mug and let it warm my fingers. "You know what you want, or you need a minute?" I glanced at the menu. Eggs, toast, bacon, pancakes, standard stuff. Eggs over easy, toast and bacon. Hash browns. Sure. She wrote it down and took the menu. "You're staying at Vicky's place?" I looked up. "Yeah, how'd you know?" "Small town." She shrugged. "Frederick mentioned you yesterday. Said your car overheated." "Right." I sipped the coffee. It was hot and strong and tasted fine. "He's looking at it this morning. He'll get it sorted." She tucked the notepad into her apron pocket. "I'm Anna, by the way." "Hudson." "Well, welcome to Medicine Bow, Hudson. Food'll be out in a few." She walked back toward the kitchen. I sat there drinking coffee and looking out the window at the empty street. A couple came in and sat at the counter. Anna brought them coffee without asking. They ordered without looking at menus. Everyone seemed normal. Calm. Like last night didn't happen. Anna came back with my food maybe 10 minutes later. Eggs cooked right, bacon crispy, toast with butter already spread on it. Hash browns golden and salted. I started eating. She refilled my coffee without me asking. You heading out today? She asked. Depends on the car. Probably tomorrow. She nodded, hesitated. Then she set the pot down on my table and leaned in a little, lowering her voice. Frederick gave you the paper, right? I stopped chewing, swallowed. The rules? Yeah, he did. Okay, good. She glanced toward the couple at the counter, then back to me. People get careless with screens. I blinked. Screens? Phones, laptops. The blue light shows through curtains at night and people forget that counts. She said it carefully, like she was trying not to sound crazy. Just make sure your curtains are closed if you're using anything with a screen after dark. That's all. I set my fork down. The rules didn't mention that. It's part of Rule 4. Keep your curtains closed at night. Doesn't matter what the light source is. She picked up the coffee pot again. A lot of travelers don't think about it. They close the curtains, but then they're on their phone in bed, and the glow comes through the fabric. It's not thick enough to block it. I looked at her. She looked back, totally serious. Okay, I said. Thanks. She nodded like I'd just agreed to something reasonable. Let me know if you need anything else. She walked off. I sat there staring at my eggs. Part of me wanted to laugh. Part of me wanted to pack up and leave the car behind and hitch a ride out of here. But I just kept eating. The eggs were good, the toast was fine. The bacon was exactly what bacon should be. I nodded like I understood while still filing it under small-town weirdness. Maybe everyone here bought into some local superstition. Maybe it was a prank they played on outsiders. Maybe they were all in on it, and Frederick and Anna had some bet going about how long it'd take me to freak out. But the knocking last night didn't feel like a prank. I finished breakfast, left a $10 bill on the table, and walked out. The Sinclair station looked the same as yesterday. 2 pumps, white walls, garage bay with the door rolled all the way up now. My Corolla was already inside. Hood popped, Frederick standing next to it with a work light clipped to the frame. I walked into the bay. It smelled like motor oil and old concrete. Frederick glanced over. Morning, he said. Morning. He turned back to the engine. Radiator's fine. Hose cracked. I stepped closer. He pointed with a wrench at a black rubber hose running from the top of the radiator. There was a split maybe 2 inches long, dried coolant crusted around the edges. Upper radiator hose, he said. Clamps worn too. That's why it blew. Can you fix it? Already ordered the parts. Should be here in an hour. He set the wrench down on a rolling tray. $40 part, $20 for labor. I'll have it done by noon. That's it? That's it. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Thanks. You get settled at Vicky's, okay? Yeah, place is fine. He nodded, picked up a rag and wiped his hands. I stood there for a second, trying to figure out how to bring it up. So, I said, the rules. Frederick didn't look up, just kept wiping his hands. Is that a real thing, or... It's real. Okay, but what does that mean? I tried to keep my tone light, like I was joking, like I wasn't actually asking. What happens if someone breaks them? They get a fine or something? Frederick tossed the rag onto the tray. He looked at me then, and his face didn't change. No humor, no irritation, just flat. You didn't open the door last night. It wasn't a question. I stared at him. How did you... Because you're still here. He turned back to the engine. And you're not acting like someone who saw something they shouldn't have. My stomach dropped a little. Someone knocked. I figured. 3 times, different spots on the door. Frederick reached for a socket wrench, and you didn't answer. No. Good. He said it the same way Anna said it when I confirmed I had the rules. Like I'd passed some kind of test I didn't know I was taking. I leaned against the workbench. What was it? Don't know. Doesn't matter. It knocked on my door. It knocked on a lot of doors. Frederick loosened a bolt near the hose clamp. That's what it does. What is it? He paused, set the wrench down, straightened up and looked at me. Town sits beside the tracks, he said. Things come through at night that aren't freight. I waited. Rules don't stop anything from arriving, he continued. They stop it from noticing you. I opened my mouth, closed it. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. So what? Something just wanders around knocking on doors, and if you answer it, what? It kills you? Frederick picked up the wrench again. Some people disappear, some people don't. Depends on what noticed them and what they did after. That's not an answer. It's the one I have. Same thing he said yesterday. I rubbed my face with both hands. This is insane. Maybe. He went back to loosening the clamp. But you didn't open the door. I stood there watching him work. My brain kept trying to rationalize it. Someone messing with me, a person, not a thing. Maybe a drifter or someone with a mental illness who wandered through town at night. That made more sense than whatever Frederick was implying, but the knocking moved. 3 knocks in one spot, 3 in another, 2 down low. A person could do that. A person could absolutely do that. Except no person I'd ever met would knock like that and never say a word. Never call out a name or ask a question. Just knock and move and knock again. Is it every night? I asked. No. Is it random? Seems like it. How long has this been happening? Frederick shrugged. Long as I've been here. Longer, probably. And people just live with it. People follow the rules. He glanced at me. The ones who don't stay long. I latched onto that, decided it was about attention. Whatever was out there, person, animal, something else, it responded to certain triggers. Opening doors, answering knocks, showing light through windows. If you didn't give it a reason to focus on you, it moved on. That made sense. Kind of. I could work with that. So if I just keep the curtains closed and don't open the door, I'm fine. Long as you follow all 5 rules, yeah. What about extra locks? Or putting something in front of the door? Frederick looked at me for a long moment. You can do that if it makes you feel better. But it won't help. Didn't say that. You didn't say it would either. He turned back to the engine. Parts will be here soon. You can wait inside if you want. There's coffee. I stood there a few more seconds, then walked into the front part of the station. Poured myself a cup of coffee from the half-full pot. It tasted burnt. I sat on the bench by the window and stared out at the empty street. I convinced myself I could improve my odds by adding extra security. A chair wedged under the door handle. Maybe check if Vicky had an extra lock I could install. Keep my phone charged and the town hall number ready to dial. It was about attention. Frederick basically confirmed that, so I'd make sure nothing had a reason to notice me. I figured if I was stuck here another night, I could at least do something about the door situation. Frederick had my car until noon. I walked back to the studio, grabbed my wallet and keys, and drove the Corolla, still smelling faintly of coolant and hot metal, back toward the interstate. Rawlins was about 40 miles west, big enough for a Walmart or a hardware store, somewhere that sold actual locks. The drive took maybe 50 minutes. The road stretched flat and empty, broken only by fence posts and the occasional ranch house set back from the highway. I passed one truck going the opposite direction. That was it. Rawlins had that same High Plains look as Medicine Bow, just bigger. Wider streets, more buildings, a couple fast food places near the exit. I spotted the Dollar General first, pulled into the lot and killed the engine. Inside smelled like cardboard and floor cleaner. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. I walked past aisles of cleaning supplies and snack food until I found the home improvement section in the back corner. Not much there. batteries, extension cords, a pegboard display with door hardware hanging from metal hooks. I grabbed a motion-activated light, the cheap kind that runs on batteries, $10, and a door chain, the kind you screw into the frame so you can crack the door without opening it all the way, $4. Not fancy, but it'd work. The cashier was young, maybe early 20s, with long black hair and a name tag that said Becky. She scanned the light and the chain without looking up. "Find everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. She told me the total, $15 and change. I paid cash and she handed me the receipt, already looking past me toward the door. Nobody else in line. I grabbed the bag and left. The drive back felt faster. I kept the receipt in my pocket and didn't think about much. I got back to the studio around 2 in the afternoon. The sun was high and bright, the kind of light that made everything look washed out and ordinary. I unlocked the door, dropped the bag on the table, and pulled out the motion light first. It came in one of those plastic clamshell packages that's impossible to open without scissors. I dug through the kitchenette drawers until I found a steak knife and sawed through the edge. The light was white plastic, smaller than I expected, with a sensor eye on the front and a little bracket on the back. Instructions said it needed 3 AA batteries. I checked the drawer again. No batteries. I'd have to grab some later, or maybe Vicky had extras. The door chain was easier, just 2 pieces, bracket and slider, with screws in a tiny plastic bag taped to the cardboard. I opened my phone and searched how to install door chain. The video that loaded showed a guy with a drill and a level doing it in under 3 minutes. I didn't have a drill. But the wood around the door frame looked soft, old. I grabbed the steak knife again and used the tip to start pilot holes where the screws needed to go. It worked. Took longer, but it worked. I lined up the bracket on the door frame first, about chest height, and drove the screws in by hand using a quarter from my pocket. The threads bit into the wood and held. Then I did the slider piece on the door itself, making sure it lined up when the door was closed. Took me maybe 20 minutes total. When I was done, I opened the door, slid the chain into place, and pushed. The door stopped after 3 inches, chain pulled tight, exactly how it was supposed to. I stood there looking at it for a second. It felt good, useful, like I'd actually done something that mattered instead of just waiting around for things to happen to me. First time in weeks, I felt like I had control over anything. Probably stupid. A $4 chain wasn't going to stop whatever had been knocking 2 nights ago, but it made me feel better anyway. I closed the door, locked the deadbolt, and left the chain dangling. That night, I locked up early. The sun hadn't even set yet, maybe 7:15, sky still purple-orange over the hills, but I didn't care. I checked the deadbolt twice, fastened the chain, and walked over to the kitchenette. The chipped white mug was still in the cabinet where I'd left it that morning. I filled it with tap water and set it back on the windowsill, centered, same as before. Then I sat at the table and waited. Nothing happened. I mean, really nothing. No knocking, no movement outside. Just the quiet hum of the mini fridge and the occasional creak of the house settling. I checked my phone once. Still 1 bar, no new messages, then set it face down on the table so the screen wouldn't glow. By 9, I was exhausted. I hadn't slept well in days. Maybe weeks if I counted everything before the drive. I brushed my teeth, changed into the t-shirt I'd been sleeping in, and collapsed onto the bed. I thought I'd lie there staring at the ceiling again, wired and listening for every sound. But I didn't. I fell asleep fast. Hard. The kind of sleep where you don't even remember closing your eyes. And for hours, nothing woke me up. Until it did. I opened my eyes and the room was dark, completely dark. My brain felt slow and thick, still halfway in a dream I couldn't remember. I reached for my phone out of reflex, just muscle memory, the same thing I'd done every morning for years, and my thumb was maybe an inch from the screen when I remembered. Blue light. Anna had said it. Screens counted. I froze, thumb hovering, heart suddenly loud in my chest. Across the room, my laptop. I had left it half open on the table. Stupid, so stupid. Woke from sleep mode. The screen flared to life and cast pale blue light across the floor, up the wall, onto the ceiling. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The room looked wrong. Not different, just wrong. Like the corners didn't line up right, or the distances between things had stretched in ways that didn't make sense. The far wall seemed farther than it should have been. The door closer. I tried not to look directly at the glow, but I'd already seen it, already registered it. My eyes had adjusted and the blue light painted everything in flat, cold shapes. On the windowsill, the mug of water trembled, just a little. A faint vibration that made the surface ripple in tiny, concentric circles. Then it stopped. The laptop screen dimmed after a few seconds, power-saving mode kicking in, and the room dropped back into darkness. I sat up slowly, pulse hammering in my ears, and stared at the window. The mug sat perfectly still now, no movement, no sound. Outside, the motion light clicked on. Harsh white light flooded the covered walkway, bleaching everything in sharp contrast. Concrete, wood beams, the edge of Vicky's truck, all of it suddenly visible and too bright. And I realized the light had done exactly what Frederick warned me about. It announced me. The motion light stayed on. I didn't move, just stared through the gap between the curtain edge and the window frame at the porch outside, at the covered walkway lit up harsh and white and way too bright. There was something standing there. Tall. Too tall, probably. Hard to tell exactly from my angle on the bed, but it looked wrong even at a glance. Too thin. The proportions didn't line up. Arms a little too long, shoulders a little too narrow, posture too straight, and still, it faced the door. Just standing there. Not moving at all. I couldn't see its face. I could see where the face should have been. The general area, the front of the head. But there wasn't anything there. Just a smooth, pale surface. No eyes, no mouth, no nose or features, or anything that made sense. My brain tried to fill in details anyway. Tried to make it into a mask or a trick of the light or someone wearing something over their head. But I'd already seen it. Already registered what I was looking at. It was just standing there, facing the door, waiting. I dropped. Straight off the bed onto the floor, knees hitting the old wood hard enough to hurt. I didn't think about it. Just moved. My phone was still on the nightstand and I didn't grab it. The rules were on the table and I couldn't remember which one applied. Don't open the door, don't answer knocking, don't respond to your name, keep curtains closed. If you break a rule, call town hall. I'd already broken one. The laptop, the screen, the blue light. My chest felt tight, heart hammering too fast. I pressed my back against the side of the bed frame and tried to remember if there was a rule about train horns. Frederick had mentioned it. Something about a false train horn. Don't go outside if you hear it. That was it. Don't go outside. I hadn't heard a train horn. The laptop screen was still glowing on the table. Pale blue light painting the ceiling and the wall and the edge of the kitchenette. I could see it from the floor. Could see the glow stretching across the room and hitting the window where the curtain didn't quite cover the frame. I squeezed my eyes shut, forced myself to breathe slower. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Count to 4. Do it again. The laptop made a faint electronic hum. Then the screen dimmed. Power saving mode kicking in after 30 seconds or a minute of inactivity. The room dropped back into darkness. I opened my eyes. Couldn't see much anymore. Just the faint outline of the table legs and the darker shape of the chair, and the slight glow from the microwave clock across the room showing 2:50-something in green digits. Outside, something tapped. Once, sharp and deliberate, wood on wood. It sounded close, maybe the porch railing, maybe the door frame. I couldn't tell from the floor. I held my breath. The motion light clicked off. The porch went dark. I stayed on the floor, didn't move, didn't make a sound. My knees hurt where I'd landed, and my back was pressed against the bed frame hard enough that the edge dug into my shoulder blade. I didn't adjust, just stayed there, frozen. Nothing else happened. No more tapping, no knocking, no sound of footsteps or movement or anything at all. I waited. The microwave clock changed to 2:58, then 2:59, then 3. I stayed on the floor. My legs started to cramp around 3:10. I shifted my weight just a little, moved my left knee half an inch to the side, and froze again. Listened. Nothing. The clock read 3:15. I thought about the rules again. Tried to remember the exact wording. Don't open your door after dark unless you called for help. I hadn't opened it. Don't answer knocking unless you know who it is. There hadn't been any knocking. If you hear your name outside, do not respond. I hadn't heard anything. Keep your curtains closed at night. I'd kept them closed, but the laptop screen had been visible. The glow. Anna had warned me about that. Screens count. Blue light penetrates fabric. I'd messed up. The clock read 3:21. I stood up slowly. My knees protested and my back ached from staying in one position too long. I kept my eyes on the window. The curtain hung flat and still. No light outside, no movement. I didn't go near it. Instead, I walked to the kitchenette, staying along the wall, and sat down at the table in the dark. The laptop was right there in front of me. I wanted to close it all the way, wanted to make sure the screen wouldn't wake up again, but I didn't touch it. Didn't want to risk the movement or the glow or anything that might draw attention. So I just sat there. The mug of water was still on the windowsill. I could see its outline against the faint, lighter shade of the curtain fabric. It wasn't shaking anymore, wasn't moving at all. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. I was furious, at myself, at the whole situation. The laptop had been my fault. I should have closed it all the way before going to bed. Should have checked. Should have been more careful. And the motion light. That was worse. I'd installed it thinking it would help, thinking it would give me warning or make me feel safer or do something useful. Instead, it had lit up the whole porch and made everything easier to see. Made me easier to see. Frederick had tried to warn me. Sort of. He'd said I could add extra locks if it made me feel better, but he hadn't said it would actually help. I'd missed that. Hadn't picked up on the tone. I rubbed my eyes. They felt dry and tired, and I wanted to sleep, but I wasn't going to. Not until morning. Not until the sun came up and the rules didn't apply anymore. The clock read 3:42. I sat there and waited. By 4:30, the sky started to lighten, just barely. A faint grayish tinge at the edges of the curtain that grew slowly into something closer to dim blue. By 5:15, I could see the room clearly again. Table, chairs, kitchenette, bed against the wall. Everything normal, everything safe. I finally closed the laptop. The next day felt fine. It felt normal, safe. The sun was up and the porch was empty, and there was nothing outside except gravel and Vicky's truck and the main house with blue siding. I checked through the peephole first, just to be sure. But the walkway looked ordinary. No shapes, no tall, too thin figures, no marks on the wood. I unlocked the deadbolt, unfastened the chain, and opened the door. The motion light was still there on the wall where I'd stuck it, white plastic, useless. I thought about ripping it down, but didn't bother. Just walked past it toward my car. Frederick's station was open when I got there around 7:45. The Corolla was parked outside the garage bay with the hood down. Frederick was inside at the counter pouring coffee into a stained mug. "It's done," he said when I walked in. "Replaced the hose and the clamp. Topped off the coolant. Should run fine now." "Thanks," I said. He slid a handwritten invoice across the counter. 40 for parts, 20 for labor, just like he'd quoted. I pulled 3 20s from my wallet and handed them over. Frederick made change and dropped it into my palm without looking at me. "You heading out today?" Yeah, I said. Probably. He nodded, didn't ask anything else, didn't mention the rules or the knocking or anything that had happened last night. Just handed me the keys and went back to his coffee. I walked to the Corolla, got in, and turned the key. The engine started smooth. No overheating smell, no steam. I let it idle for a minute, watching the temperature gauge stay steady in the normal range. Everything was fine. I drove back to the studio, packed my duffel, and checked my phone. Still 1 bar. No new messages. My brother hadn't responded to my last text, but that was normal. He'd get back to me eventually. I figured I'd grab breakfast at the cafe, say thanks to Anna for the screen warning, and then hit the road. Be in Pennsylvania in 2 or 3 days, depending on how much I wanted to drive. Simple. The cafe was quiet when I walked in. Same wood paneling. Same framed photos on the walls. Same ceiling fan turning slowly overhead. Anna was behind the counter, wiping down the coffee station. She looked up when the door chimed and smiled. Morning. Same table? Yeah, I said. Thanks. She brought me coffee and I ordered eggs and toast again. She didn't mention the rules, didn't ask how I slept or if anything happened. Just took my order and walked back to the kitchen. Everything felt normal. I ate quickly, left cash on the table, and stood to go. That was when I realized I hadn't asked about the best route east. I'd been using my phone for directions before, but the signal here was garbage and I didn't trust it to load maps reliably once I got back on the highway. Anna was refilling someone else's coffee 2 tables over. I waited until she finished, then caught her eye. Hey, what's the fastest way back to the interstate from here? She tilted her head slightly. 80? Yeah. Same way you came in, she said. Just head west on the main road. You'll hit the on-ramp in about 6 miles. Got it. Thanks. I walked out to the Corolla, tossed my duffel in the back seat, and started the engine. The main road ran straight through town. I passed the post office, the houses with metal roofs, the town hall building, and the Sinclair station. Frederick was outside near the pumps, talking to someone in a pickup truck. He didn't wave. I kept driving. The road stretched ahead, flat and empty, running west through dry grass and fence posts toward the interstate. I drove for maybe 3 minutes, 4 tops. Then I saw the post office again. Same building, same faded paint, same metal roof. I slowed down, checked the road. I was still heading west, hadn't turned around, hadn't made any turns at all. But there it was, post office on my right, then the houses with metal roofs, then the cafe with the wooden open sign. I kept driving. The town hall building passed on my left. Then the Sinclair station. Frederick was still outside, still talking to the guy in the pickup truck. Same position, same posture. The road kept going straight ahead, through dry grass and fence posts. I drove for another 3 or 4 minutes. The post office appeared again. I pulled over, put the car in park, sat there staring at the same faded paint and metal roof I'd just passed twice. My hands were shaking a little. I gripped the wheel tighter. Okay. I'd gotten turned around somehow, missed a turn or taken a wrong street or something. Small towns were confusing. Streets didn't always make sense. I pulled out my phone. 1 bar. I opened maps and waited for it to load. The spinning wheel appeared, kept spinning. Nothing loaded. I tried again. Same result. I set the phone down and looked at the road ahead. It ran straight west. No curves. No intersections I could see. Just flat, empty pavement stretching toward the horizon. I put the car back in drive and kept going. Post office, houses, cafe, town hall, Sinclair station. Frederick was still outside, still hadn't moved. I made it past the station and watched the odometer, watched the road, counted the fence posts. 3 minutes later, the post office was back. I stopped the car in the middle of the street. No other traffic, no one around. My chest felt tight again. Same feeling as last night on the floor. Same panic trying to crawl up my throat. I forced myself to breathe, in through the nose, out through the mouth. There had to be an explanation. A turn I was missing. A fork in the road I wasn't seeing. Something. I got out of the car and looked around. The road behind me ran straight back through town. The road ahead ran straight west. No turns, no side streets, no options. I got back in the car and tried heading east instead. The road curved slightly after the first house. I followed it, past Vicky's blue house with the gravel driveway, past 2 more houses I didn't recognize. Then the road just stopped. Not a dead end exactly. More like the pavement faded into gravel, and the gravel faded into dirt, and the dirt faded into scrub grass and nothing. I sat there staring at where the road used to be. Then I turned around and drove back toward town. I turned the GPS back on after that third dead-end drive east. Figured maybe I'd just missed something. The screen loaded, showed my position as a blue dot in Medicine Bow, and immediately plotted a route to Interstate 80 West. 12 minutes, straight shot. I followed it. The voice told me to turn right in 0.3 miles. I turned right, past a house I didn't recognize, then another. The road curved left and I ended up on a county route marked CR 487. The GPS recalculated. It told me to continue for 2.1 miles, then turn left. I turned left, drove past fence posts and empty grass, saw a grain silo in the distance that I hadn't noticed before. The road bent right, then straightened. I kept going. The GPS said to turn right in half a mile. I turned right, and there was the Virginian Hotel, same wooden sign, same gravel lot with 3 pickups parked out front. I'd just driven a full loop. I pulled over and stared at the GPS. It was still showing the route to I-80. Still said 12 minutes. I tapped the screen and zoomed out. The map looked normal. Roads branching off in different directions. Town labeled clearly. Interstate marked in blue to the west. I started driving again. This time I ignored the first turn and kept going straight. The GPS recalculated. Told me to make a U-turn. I didn't. I just followed the road in front of me, watching the odometer tick up. 1 mile, 2 miles, 3. The road curved left, then right, then left again. And there was the Virginian Hotel. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, just because I didn't know what else to do. I turned the GPS off, tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, pulled back onto the road and decided to follow the signs instead. There was one up ahead, white with black letters. Interstate 80 West, 6 miles. I followed it, drove through town heading west, past the post office, past the houses with metal roofs, saw another sign at the far edge of town. Same thing. Interstate 80 West, 6 miles. I kept going. The road stayed straight for maybe 2 minutes. Then it curved, not sharply. Just a gentle bend to the right. I followed it. Past more fence posts, more grass, a rusted tractor sitting in a field. Then another sign. Interstate 80 West, 6 miles. And past that, the post office. I checked the odometer. I'd driven 7 miles since the last time I saw it. I kept driving. Past the cafe, past town hall, past the Sinclair station where Frederick was standing outside near the pumps talking to a guy in a pickup truck. Same guy, same position, same conversation, probably. 3 minutes later, I passed the post office again. This time, I didn't stop. I just kept going, past the whole sequence again. Post office, houses, cafe, town hall, Sinclair. Frederick still standing there, still talking. I counted this time. 3 minutes and 40 seconds between loops. I made it through 6 loops before I finally pulled into the Sinclair lot and parked next to the pumps. My hands were shaking, not a lot, just enough that I had to grip the wheel for a second before getting out. Frederick saw me. He said something to the guy in the pickup, then walked over. Didn't say anything at first, just looked at me. "Can't get out," I said. "I know. I've been driving for 40 minutes, same roads, same buildings. GPS doesn't work, signs don't work. I keep ending up back here." Frederick nodded. "Yeah." I waited for more. He didn't offer it. "So what do I do?" I asked. He glanced back toward the garage, then at me. "Town doesn't hold people with barriers, doesn't block the roads or lock the gates. Holds them with habit, with timing. I don't know what that means. Means you can't leave whenever you want. Means there's a window." I stared at him. A window. Safe time to go. Tied to the schedule. "The train schedule?" "Not the one online," Frederick said. "The old one. The real one." "How do I know when that is?" Frederick reached into his coveralls and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Not a new one. The same one he'd given me 2 days ago. He unfolded it and held it so I could see. "Rule sheets got more than rules," he said. I looked. The 5 numbered lines were still there, same as before. But at the very bottom, along the edge where the paper had been folded, there were tiny numbers. I hadn't noticed them before, probably because they were small, really small, printed in light gray ink that barely stood out against the white. I leaned closer. The numbers looked like dates or times. There was a sequence running horizontally, each one separated by a dash, and one of them was circled in pencil. 3:07 to 3:12 a.m., Frederick said. "Westbound freight, that's your window." "Tonight?" "Yeah." "And if I leave during that window, the roads work?" "If you follow the rules until then," Frederick said. "And if nothing's still paying attention when the train comes through." I felt something cold settle in my chest. What if it is? Frederick folded the paper back up and handed it to me. "Then you stay another night and try again." I drove back to Vicky's place, parked in the same spot, went inside and locked the door, sat at the table and unfolded the paper again. The numbers were there. Definitely. I hadn't imagined them. They were printed in a font so small I had to squint to read them, but they were there. A grid running along the bottom margin, columns that looked like days of the week, rows that looked like times. The circled entry said 03070312 with a note underneath in tiny print, WB Freight. Westbound freight, 3:07 in the morning, 5 minutes. I checked my phone. It was 11:30 a.m. That meant I had 15.5 hours until the window opened. I sat there for a while, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 20. Then I got up and started preparing. First thing I did was take down the motion light. I'd already removed it from the porch last night after realizing it had announced me, but I'd left it sitting on the kitchenette counter. I picked it up now, opened the back panel, and pulled out the batteries I'd bought at the Dollar General that afternoon. Then I walked outside, unscrewed the bracket from the door frame, and brought the whole thing back inside, dropped it in the trash can under the sink. Next, I checked the door. Deadbolt worked. Chain was fastened. I tested it twice to make sure. Then I went to the window. The mug of water was still there from this morning. I dumped it out, rinsed it, filled it again, and set it back on the sill, centered, same as before. I closed the curtains, checked that there were no gaps, no light coming through. Then I grabbed my laptop and phone, shut the laptop completely, not sleep mode, full shutdown, held the power button until the screen went black, and stayed black. I put it in my duffel bag and zipped the bag closed. The phone I turned face down on the table. Then I changed my mind and put it in the duffel too. I sat back down, checked the time on the microwave, 11:53 a.m., 15 hours to go. I didn't leave the apartment, didn't go to the cafe, didn't walk around town. I just stayed inside and waited. At some point, I ate. Ramen again, same dented pot, same hot plate. I didn't taste it. At 7 p.m., I checked the deadbolt. Still locked. I fastened the chain even though it was already fastened. At 8:15, the sun went down. I watched the light fade at the curtain edges until it was gone. At 9:10, I locked the door again. I know it was already locked. I just needed to check. I sat at the table in the dark. The only light was the microwave clock. Green numbers, 9:14, 9:15, 9:16. At some point, I moved to the bed, sat on the edge with my back against the wall. I didn't lie down, didn't close my eyes, just sat there, watching the room. The hours moved slowly. Microwave said 10:30, then 11, then 11:45. Midnight came and went. I kept watching. At 1:15 a.m., I heard the first train horn, distant, west of town. The same low sound I'd heard before. I didn't move. The horn sounded again, closer this time. But I didn't hear the rumble, didn't hear the tracks, didn't hear anything except the horn itself. I stayed on the bed, kept my breathing slow. The horn sounded a third time. Close, really close, like it was right outside the window. But the tracks were silent. I understood then. It wasn't a train. It was the same thing Frederick had warned me about. The imitation. The thing that sounded like a train to make you think it was safe to go outside. I lay flat on the bed, pressed my face into the pillow, held my breath. The horn didn't sound again. I waited. 1 minute, 2, 5. Nothing. At 3:04 a.m., I sat up, checked the microwave. 3 minutes until the window opened. At 3:06, the knocking started. 3 slow knocks on the back door. Same rhythm as before. Deliberate, evenly spaced. I didn't move. The knocks came again. Different spot, higher on the door. I slid off the bed onto the floor, crawled toward the kitchenette. My knee hit the table leg and I froze, but nothing outside reacted. There was a landline phone on the wall near the sink. I'd seen it when I first arrived, but figured it was dead. Probably disconnected. Most places didn't keep landlines anymore. I reached up and lifted the receiver. Dial tone. I pressed redial. Didn't know what number it would call. Didn't know if it would work. But Frederick had said to call town hall if I broke a rule, and maybe someone else had called before me. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered. Calm, professional, female. Town hall, this is River. I didn't say anything, just held the receiver and listened. I'm here, River said. Stay on the line. The knocking stopped. I pressed the receiver against my ear, heard River breathing on the other end. Steady, unhurried. Something scraped the siding outside, long and slow, like nails or claws dragging across wood. River stayed quiet. So did I. Then at 3:08 a.m., the real train came through. I heard it before I felt it. A low rumble building from the west, growing louder. The windows started shaking. The floor vibrated. The whole apartment rattled as the freight roared past on the tracks I couldn't see. The scraping sound outside stopped. The train kept going, 30 seconds, 40, a full minute of noise and vibration. Then it faded. The rumble moved east. The shaking stopped. The line clicked, once, then went dead. I stayed on the floor holding the receiver until 3:13 a.m. Then I hung up and crawled back to the bed. Morning came eventually. I didn't sleep, just waited until the light came back. At 7:30, I packed my duffel, checked the room one last time. The mug was still on the sill. The door was still locked. Everything looked normal. I unlocked the deadbolt, unfastened the chain, opened the door. The porch was empty. The walkway was empty. My car was parked where I'd left it. I loaded the duffel into the trunk and got in. Turned the key. The engine started smooth. I pulled up the GPS. It loaded normally. Showed the route to I-80. 12 minutes. I drove to the Sinclair station first. Frederick was inside. I paid him the $60 I still owed for the radiator hose. He took the cash and put it in the register. "Road should work now," he said. "Yeah." He looked at me for a second. Then he said, "Don't come back." It wasn't a threat, just advice. "I won't," I said. I got back in the car and followed the GPS west. Past the post office, past the houses, past the cafe and town hall and the Sinclair station. The road stayed straight. I watched the odometer. 1 mile, 2 miles, 3. No loop, no post office, just road. At 6 miles, I saw the on-ramp, Interstate 80 West, same sign I'd been following yesterday. I took it, merged onto the interstate, drove east toward Pennsylvania. Medicine Bow disappeared behind me. I still don't use motion lights. Don't keep my phone next to the bed when I sleep. Don't treat rules like they're suggestions or folklore, because I know something noticed me that first night, and I know I barely made it out. And I know if I ever give permission again, if I ever open the door or answer the knocking or let the blue light show, I won't get another window. That's just how it works.